Well, we are moving along at a snail's pace through Colossians, but really covering a lot of ground, even though we don't read a whole lot of verses in one go. And really keeping in mind this idea of rightly dividing the word of truth, being Bereans, getting stuck in, looking at scripture, and trying to understand the depth and beauty. I mean, the more you get into the Bible and you see the complexity and how it connects across the books of the Bible and the themes that you see, you think, oh my goodness, this isn't like the Quran, for example, which is very very fragmented, and stories aren't finished, and all kinds of things. The Quran is so clearly you know man-made, and so clearly based on half understandings of Christian stories. And in the Bible, wow, the predictions that come out of the Old Testament that are fulfilled in the New Testament. It's fantastic. And I've mentioned before the archaeology that happens in the Middle East that has never contradicted the Bible. In fact, only served to shore up the claims of the Bible. Is really nice. So today we're going to do 16 to 18, and so I'll just start there. So we sat down, my son and I, to engage with this, and he started reading. For by him all things were created. For by Christ, the second person of the Trinity, all things were created. All things that are in heaven and all things that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. And that's a verse that's kind of nice to go into the to the Greek and look at those different words for dominions and principalities and thrones and powers. Verse 17, and he is before all things, and by him all things consist. Now, there's a very nice little video out there from a physicist from, I think it's Hebrew University, who's kind of proves that God exists. And he says, at the Big Bang, and there are many variations of that, but just sort of the layman's Big Bang. At the Big Bang, whatever created the universe had to be outside the universe, couldn't have been material, couldn't have been stuff. Just like there's no paint that ever painted a painting, for example. So it had to be outside of that, had to be all powerful, had to be immensely powerful to do this. He gives us like 5 different things that this entity had to be. And he said, if you look at those 5 things, it looks kind of like God, doesn't it? It looks kind of like some of our descriptions of God. So that I'll put it in the description. He is before all things, and in him all things consist. All things hold together. He is that that theory of gravity. He is quantum mechanics. And as the scientists say, we're reading the mind of God when we're using mathematics to get at ultimate fundamental truths in the universe. And he is head of the body, the church. Okay, this mystery thing that was not in the Old Testament, you cannot find it. It was not prophesied. It was a mystery. It was a secret. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning. So Christ is the beginning. He is the firstborn from the dead, that is Christ, that in all things he might have the preeminence. And the next couple of verses you're going to see, he might have the all fullness would be in him, but that's for next time. So what are we gonna focus on here? And all things by him were created, and here we we went into the Greek, we went into the mounts and looked at some of the Greek words. But here, how did we talked about how did Christ, the second person of the Trinity, how did he create? How did he do that? And this was, if we read John 1:1, he is the Word, he is the Logos in Greek. He is the living Word, Logos, he's the living Logos. In the Bible, we have the written Logos. Yeah, so if you want to know God's will for you, open the Bible. Yeah, pray about what you read, get stuck in, and you will discover God's will for you. Not specifically, do you take a job at McDonald's or at Starbucks? That's silly, I think. But what is His will for you in general as a Christian? So if part of the body of Christ, that you can find in the Bible, and especially the epistles of Paul, which would be Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, which we are in now, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Philemon, Titus. But you can find a lot of good stuff that is to you and for you and about you in those epistles, and in Romans to Philemon as well. Paul, the apostle to the Gentiles, that's where we need to look. Back to Logos. So we're talking about the Logos and how you speak. And I think it's Jordan Peterson that talks about this, that speaking sort of makes the world different. And for example, if you're a teenager, maybe not your teenager, maybe you, is lying. And I spend a lot of my career lying. I mean, not huge, horrible, evil lies that got people thrown in prison. Not that kind of thing, but porkies, just lying a little bit here and there, maybe embellishing a little over here, sort of a social lubricant. And what you do is you start getting good at that. And your Logos, what is coming out of your mouth, it's not what goes in a man's mouth, it says in the Bible, that corrupts him, it's what comes out. And if you are lying, Peterson talks about it in his book, he says, always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And anyways, if you're going to open your mouth, if that Logos is going to come out, tell the truth. Or you can just stand there silent. Don't tell a lie, because it distorts reality. Once you start lying, even small lies, they even tell you with dementia patients, your mother, your father, or someone may have dementia. Do not lie to them. You say, well, yes, but what difference does it make? It apparently makes a difference. Telling lies rips at reality, distorts reality, and you start to have a life that looks more like a circus mirror than the clarity that you would like to have when you're looking at truth, objective truth, by speaking truth. So telling those little lies actually does warp reality. And this is the same, power that God used to create reality. It's the Logos. He spoke it into existence. And, that should have an effect on how you speak, certainly as a Christian. I mean, it's just good practice anyway. I mean, Jordan Peterson's not a Christian, and it's just good practice anyway. Just don't tell lies. And you say, well, yeah, but to the person with dementia or to my boss, I can't really tell the truth. Well, you have to get good at how you do that. And if you're like me, you build up a lot of competencies in telling people what they wanted to hear and not quite telling the truth and sort of avoiding this or avoiding that. And so, so when you get in a tough situation, what are you going to do? You're going to lean on those skills that you've built, or you're going to lean on what you think you should actually probably do. Well, if you're like me, you lean on the skills that you have built. And I would say in the last, 10, 12 years, to my knowledge, I haven't told a lie. And if I have said something wrong, I've corrected it. And it takes a while. I mean, it hurts. And how do you tell people the truth without damaging the relationship? I often use the example of, your wife or your girlfriend says, does my butt look fat in these jeans, and you think, the logos, I've got to tell the truth. I've got to, be as close to reality as I possibly can be, which is a good thought. And then you say, yes, it looks enormous. Then, you've got to learn how to tell the truth. Yeah. So it would be just as truthful to say, a dress compliments you better. Now, your wife or girlfriend knows exactly what you're saying then, yeah? And you don't have to come out and say, yes, your backside looks gigantic. I think a dress compliments you better. Now, actually, it's an unfair question, because if your wife or your girlfriend's asking that, it's just laying a minefield to you, and you should actually just refuse to say it. The point is that we've got to get good at telling the truth. We've got to build those muscles. And God gives us an example through the Logos. Again, back to Jordan Peterson, we can see that lying just distorts reality. And it's just bad practice to be lying. Yeah. And so your Logos, what comes out of your mouth, we can think about what came out of the mouth of God that just put the universe into existence. So he is the Logos. Following him, he is the way and the truth in John. He is truth. He is the Logos. We have the written Logos, and that's what we should follow. And part of following Christ, and maybe part of following Paul, is never lying. Never, ever lie. And of course, in the first, if you've been lying to people for a long time and things come up, you're going to have to find some way. You're going to have to practice this new skill of telling the truth, of radical truth. Now, radical truth, maybe for me, is a little bit clumsy, and I say the wrong thing and that kind of thing, because maybe I'm not that good at it. But as you build on it and you get better and better at it, you'll be better able to answer the questions that are like legitimate questions and not fall into minefields. But you'll also sort of start to lose that skill of lying. It just won't feel. It'll just be like, why would I do that? I'm going to stick with the truth. And Peterson also says you must assume that if you tell the truth, it is the best thing that could happen in that moment. Telling the truth represents the best thing that could happen. You say, yeah, but if I tell the truth here, I might lose my job. Now, it also depends on how you tell it, so don't rush in like a bulldozer. But if there's a truth that has to be told, if you have to tell the truth about that engineering project that actually is just going to sink into the sea, you got to find a way to ally yourself and marry yourself to the truth, to speak the truthful Logos and not distort the world around you. So that's what my son and I talked about in this section. Jesus Christ is the Logos. He spoke things into existence. We have the written Logos. We have the written word. And it is incumbent upon us as followers of Christ to tell the truth and to get good at telling that truth, just like Jesus did. Well, good luck with that. I hope you're chewing your own way through Colossians at this moment. And until next time, God bless.